or employer that, I know I had these 2 years where I wasn't working, but I was attending University of Laverne. And the reason why I was attending University of Laverne is because I was getting my bachelor's degree. I didn't have a chance to do that before because I had to start working. Whatever your reason may be, but as long as you can back that up.
And I'm sorry, just really quick, where would you put that about the school? I'm sorry, and highlighting.
In a conversation.
Or if it's on your resume, right at education. So if you're still in school, your anticipated graduation date is in 2012, for example. So, if you don't have anything else before that, if you had like an AA degree, I'm sure if you had an AA degree, whatever year that was. And then if currently you're in school, I'd show, bachelor's in, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, expected graduation date 2012.
Be careful about one thing you did. You made a, what I call a they statement. They say. Who is they? In their industry, in the finance industry, he's giving you a very low percentage of unemployment. Whereas you're listening to a media outlet, which, if you believe everything in the media, okay. And one of the things that I would say is watch those statements, because an obvious statement, what is a benign statement I call it, has an obvious question. What do you mean? And if you can't answer that, you're making statements that you don't understand to begin with, and it makes you read. But one thing I would say other than that is, when you're talking about industry and unemployment rate, you need to use all your resources and focus in areas that maybe may not discriminate, but maybe you don't know who that is. But you have a huge source, like in career services. They have tapped to different people, a world of people that are part of University of Laverne and extended. The value of networking, which I think we'll get into later, that is huge. And you have a major source of career services that, if this is where you want to go, there are a massive amount of people that have graduated or an associate working for. You may say that's your one key, that identifier. University of Laverne. For a small school person, for me, if I know the guy's coming to me from the University of Laverne, if I see that on the resume, I don't care what the rest of it says for a minute. I'm going to at least put that in the, I got to read that. And then when I go through it, if there's a question, I'm probably going to give that one the benefit of the doubt. So that was something that maybe Paul will say, well, I know it's iffy, but I know him. You might want to apply there because I know you'll get the interview. So you use all your resources. Your resources may be things you haven't thought of. It may be the receptionist of the place. That you're sitting out there and you're making nice with her. All of a sudden she tells you things or you ask questions, they may tell you things.
Jennifer, did you have a couple?
I was just going to ask, what do you guys feel about like internships to fill up those gaps? Or any kind of voluntary, do you think that's a good idea? What do you guys suggest for those gaps?
Definitely, yeah. Internships is awesome. If you can land an internship. I bring in candidates who are students who are either in an internship, even though it's a non-paid, there's something on there, and I may get a client that would say, yeah, I'll see him, it's an entry level, and he's been going to school and doing this internship, so it shows that he has some initiative to go out and get work experience. Definitely, it's strong to put on the resume. Yeah.
Internships are critical. They saved me 5 years of my life, and I know I don't want to work there permanently.
That's right.
And you learn a lot, but you can also, if the industry, sorry, it's true. If the industry doesn't have one, or the place you want to go doesn't have one, now this is the entrepreneur side of me of thinking, you can create your own need. And there are a lot of smaller businesses that could use an intern that they don't know what they don't know because they were old school. And they now could use a different perspective. For example, I'll take, there's a large contingency of students that would be classified as international. There's an insurance agency that I know of right now, right in downtown LA in Koreatown. Guess what their predominant language is in their office? It's English. Now, any of you think what I'm thinking? Why don't you have somebody who speaks Korean, because it's right near Koreatown, or Chinatown, depending on what part of that town it is, or Spanish. They have 0 people they're not capitalizing on a huge, huge, huge market because ethnicities like to deal with ethnicities in our industry. They're more comfortable with their own ethnicity. And this guy sits in the middle of two huge Hispanic and Korean populations, and not one person speaks the language. So if I was a student wanting to go into insurance, which if I did, I'd seek help first. But if I was going there and I spoke the language, and I thought, why could I can't get a job like this because I want to go here, I would find something like that or see if they have it. And now you propose it to somebody, you might create your own internship or position. So you need, that's a creative portion of when I say use all your resources, learn about the company that's out there that you may not necessarily be. You can create your own position.
We had a question in the back and a question in the front.
Yeah, I guess the question I had is when you were talking about cover letters, you said each one needs to be individualized. I understand that and I get that. But I feel like when I was having trouble with this with the economy, say if you're sending out maybe 1 or 2 resumes, you know, a day or a week, because you are working on a cover letter, you're not going to have as much success as if you were sending out 20 resumes a day or a week. But if you're doing that, you really don't have the time to individualize the cover letter. So I guess my question is for you is, where's the balance? You know, where do you say, okay, I want to put in the time and I want to make this specialized. However, I need to get as many resumes out as possible. So, and I don't have that kind of time. So I'm in school as well. And so where does the balance, or is there a balance, or is there
I'm sorry, that doesn't fly with me.
My question is, are you looking for a career or a job?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Are you looking for a job or a career?
Well, I mean a career.
How much time do you want to spend in that career?
Well, a lot. I mean, I would like to spend my time, but
So how much time are you spending on sending things out in that career field?
I would spend a great deal of time. But you have to understand, it's a number game too. So if you're sending out 1 resume a week,
Not to interrupt you there, but let me give you a thought or something to share with you. And there are 2 perspectives. You know, getting 100 companies on the radar and sending out 100 resumes, or doing a little bit of research, doing customized cover letter, maybe researching who's an alum from school who works at that company that can tell you about the company, going on LinkedIn and finding out names for informational interviews. So my strategy at your level, being in grad school, as Steve was mentioning, is this is not just a job at selling cell phones at Verizon, okay, where you can then go across the street and sell cell phones at AT&T. I think it's really important for you to actually think about, because there may be jobs that look great, and you research their company and you go, these guys are jerks. You know? So don't forget, you are also interviewing and evaluating that company, because you're going to spend a whole lot of time and energy there. So my suggestion is to take the time at your level. You know, if you're doing a resume a day and 1 networking contact a day, I would say that's a good activity level. So maybe you're putting too much pressure on yourself and what you need to do. Again, this is just a thought to really spend the quality time. And remember something. Your goal is to get in the door. Okay? To walk through a very crowded bus of people and to get to the driver's seat up front. And so to do that, you can't just have another resume. And the other reason I share with you that your goal is to get in the door is because then you can shine. You can really be yourself. And the best thing is, by getting in the door and losing the interview or the job, is you gain an experience in interviewing. How often do you get an experience in interview? It's not something you do every day. Yeah. Like you go to the gym, you go play, tennis or whatever. So I would treat it with a lot of attention. And maybe you're trying to do the numbers game, like you said, like just get a whole lot of resumes. Narrow it down and look at the 20 you're sending. What really sounds like a cool company to work for, and it could be as simple as because they're in the town I want to live in. So then focus on it. That's my suggestion.
I don't think there's a balance, in my opinion. As as he was saying, you're trying to get in the door. If you don't get in the door, what good was sending the resume? And if the resume is generic, it doesn't have much to it, there's no content, and it's just putting it out there, chances are that's what it conveys. I just sent this out because I needed to get out.
Well, it's not my resume, it's the cover letter. You know, and the resume, I have different things on there. I do have work experience. And, you know, I have the education as well. It's the cover letter, it's the question.
I think the cover letter gets as much attention as a resume, because it can screw you just as much. So it's just as critical.
Okay, and going back to what you're saying as far as like, I like this company, I would work for this company. Just because you like a company and you would want to work for a company doesn't necessarily mean that you could land that job. So what happens is if you put in the time, you know, for, say you have 5 companies, you know, and you're like, these are 5 companies that I've identified, these are the 5 companies that I would like to work for. And so you put in that time and you don't get any response back or any success. So now you start looking for other companies that you might not necessarily like to work for, but it would be within that experience. Or, I mean, you know, I'm saying it's like, as far as like, how do you reconcile your time with the effort as well? And to make it as effective as possible, I guess is my question. How do you be as effective as possible? Understanding there's constraints and everything else as well.
There really isn't any shortcuts, to be honest with you. Especially, I mean, if you have these 5 companies that you're targeting, how much are you targeting them? So you send in a resume. Now, send in your resume and your cover letter. Do you know if they're going to be at a networking event? Do you know have you searched LinkedIn? Do you know anyone that they are connected to? I mean, there's no real shortcut, you know. And if you decide that you've exhausted all your efforts with one company and you want to expand, well, then by all means, you know, then you start looking at maybe some other competitors or similar industries. Try to get creative, but you know, everyone is telling you the same thing. There's really, I mean, you have to target what you're going after because this is your career. And you plan to be with this particular company for hopefully, you know, either 5, 10, 15 years. You're not just going to get a job just to get a job. You can just walk out and land something. But if you're targeting your next long-term opportunity, it's going to take time and it's going to take effort. And you know that it's going to be competitive. There's, you know, really no other shortcut to it.
Use all your resources.
Yeah, you are not learning anything by sending out 20 resumes. All you're learning how to do is look at stamp. So one of the things I want to share with the team here is, and everybody at the school, yeah, it's tough. It sucks not having a job, you know. But let me tell you something. And this you can share with your parents, you can share with yourself, is every time you're doing this research, every time you're trying to get for a job, you're learning something, you're getting better. You know, every time you sit down and do a mock interview or do an informational interview, so instead of sending out 20 letters, I might say, you know what, this week I'm going to try to get one informational interview with somebody who's in the industry I like, and ask them what kind of a cover letter would be good for you. And so you are then creating better value. So it's not so much quantity, but quality. And remember, you're learning. So, you know, we've all like applied for jobs and been told resoundingly, no way. Sometimes nicely, sometimes not so nicely. You know, and a job you really wanted, you know, that I'm perfect for, why would they call me? You know, I can do this. No problem. You know, you're learning. Each one of those is a learning experience. So the comment there is always be positive.
If you can't get in the place you want, find their competitor. Find a place they do business with.
Yeah.
If you get in their competitor, and you can do better when somebody will remember the name hopefully, and when you put it back into I applied, you know, at this point, you then become more relevant to them. But you may find in that research that we're talking about that you may not want to work for them. But when I always go back to use your resources, because if you can find somebody that works there that can tell you about it, how much time did you spend working on and money going into trying to get an interview versus one conversation that helped you learn, maybe that's not where I want to spend my time. Now that time that you were talking about, all this time that you're spending, you just narrowed out maybe a couple, 3 hours that you don't need to spend